Helene gets stronger, moving toward Florida, and then eventually by tomorrow morning, those effects are going to be right here in North and South Carolina. Thanks for joining us. We're going to try and give you a whole overview of the system, where it is, where it's going, and just what you can expect and how to prepare. The time is starting to run out a little bit, isn't it? We have a News 2 weather impact alert day for Friday for a couple of different reasons. It's one of those days where we certainly have more than one weather concern. And in this case, we're talking about some rainfall that could bring possibly some flooding, some wind gusts that could bring possibly some power outages as well, and even a threat of a tornado in a couple of spots. The time frame is this, 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Friday. And as I said, those are your concerns. What you need to do, be alert for any warnings that might be issued for your area at any time. We're talking about the early morning here, so have that phone close by, have the alerts turned on, and be ready to go. Of course, charge up those devices too in case there were to be any sort of power outage. We're certainly going to have some of those across the state of North Carolina, and you can see why. We're talking about a Category 4 extremely dangerous hurricane. Remember, Hurricane Helene has strengthened so quickly. Earlier today, it was still a Category 1 hurricane. Now it's a Category 4 storm, and that is impressive to say the least. Just to go from that sort of strength to this is really hard to do. We call that rapid intensification when it comes to hurricanes, and it's pretty rare, but unfortunately getting more common in recent years with the warm water in the Gulf of Mexico. This is Tampa for reference. There's Panama City. Tallahassee is right about here. The storm is moving north-northeast at 23 miles per hour. That's really fast for a hurricane. Usually they don't go that quickly, but now it is racing up to the north, as I said, only 80 miles offshore of Cedar Key, Florida. And if we take a little bit of a closer view, you can see this is what they call Appalachia Bay. That's where they're expecting this to start to come ashore, and it's really closing in. It looks like it's going to make a landfall somewhere in this particular area. Tallahassee is right there. If it misses it just off to the east, that would be good news for them. That's Gainesville, home of the University of Florida, Jacksonville on the right-hand side of your screen. If we take a closer view, we can use the radar to track it now as well because it's close to land. This is what we call the eye wall, and the most intense wind and rain inside of a hurricane is right there in the eye wall. This one at times has had a couple of different eye walls, but that's the inner one. That's the strongest part of the storm, and in the middle, as they say, it is calm. That's for sure. And what you're going to see is all this water getting pushed up. So if you were in Cedar Key right now, the ocean is already starting to rise at a rapid rate, and it can cause that flooding in a bad way. This is a camera from farther south down the peninsula that we were watching earlier. Obviously, it's gotten dark now, but down in Palmetto, Florida, these boats have been kind of bobbing up and down as the storm kind of intensifies a little bit. The storm is going to stay pretty strong for a couple of hours. Going inland still is a Category 2. In parts of Georgia. That is not typical for them. The city of Atlanta is on guard and high alert as well. The storm could still be a hurricane when it moves nearby to that part of the city. What we're also looking at, though, is that the strongest impacts with this hurricane are all on the eastern side. So even though it looks like everything is fine in the Carolinas on this map, it's not the case at all. Take a look. You can see how big the rain field is with this hurricane. As it moves farther off to the north, a lot of the moisture is getting drawn up into the Carolinas, as it has already been raining for a couple of days. Part of the reason for that has to do with the jet stream right now. There's a big dip over here, and it's guiding a lot of that tropical moisture northward up the east coast. Of course, we have really tall mountains in North Carolina. That's part of the reason why we're seeing so much of this rainfall just kind of grow and grow in our area. The mountains have been getting it pretty hard for a while now as flash flood warnings continue. Here in the Piedmont area, we've mostly had a bit of a gentle rain today. Rainfall amounts that we can handle pretty much here in the Triad area, at least. Across the western half of the state, though, it's quite a bit different. Take a look here. This is Wilkes County. We obviously have Allegheny County as well. Near Sparta, our radar estimates anywhere from 6 to 8 inches of rain have fallen just within the last 24 hours or so. And around the Wilkes County area too, the Yadkin River is already rising very, very quickly, and it is going to be possibly a major flood of the Yadkin River over the next couple of days, because all of that heavy rain that falls in the Blue Ridge, it's going to go downhill, of course, and that's where it flows into. The Yadkin River will start to go through Wilkes County and get very high, and then it moves its way over through the rest of the Piedmont, and those flood impacts will linger for a while. These are just rainfall totals today, on our Thursday, on top of what already fell yesterday. Take a look. Boone, over 3 inches. Charlotte, around 4. Asheville proper, right around 5 inches of rain. It's all too much to handle for sure. Here in the Piedmont, much less severe, only about 1/3 of an inch at PTI so far. But keep in mind, we too have had about 3 inches of rain in recent days. All of us have a flood alert, or I should say a flood watch, through early on Friday. We're going to keep this actually going until about 6 o'clock on Friday afternoon. The flood risk for the rest of the night tonight into early tomorrow morning is at a high in the foothills and the mountains, a little bit lower for the Triad area. For Friday, the flood risk looks like this. High level of flooding risk in the North Carolina mountains and foothills. Again, that's very rare. We only see that during the most extreme kind of weather events. Around here, level 2 and level 3. Certainly something to take very seriously, especially for early tomorrow morning. Forecast for rain totals from here on out. Again, not that impressive around here. 1 to 2 inches of rain should be all that we see going forward, but it's all coming in a quick fashion tomorrow morning. For the mountains, though, it's much different. 3, 4, 5, and 10 inches of rain, that's still possible. So that's the scary thing about this storm. Let's walk you through the futurecast. This is kind of our projection of where the storm is and how it's going through the area tomorrow. We're still going to see some steady rain through the rest of the night tonight. Still a low risk of a tornado warning. Probably not going to find one. We get a bit of a break, though, with the first part of the storm, and then the hurricane starts to come in early tomorrow morning. This is 5 and 6 a.m. Notice how those rain bands overspreading the area very quickly. This is going to be a fast and furious hit of this hurricane tomorrow morning across the Carolinas. You can see the extremely heavy rain at that time in parts of the mountains. These are the rain bands that we want to watch very carefully. Those are the ones that can swirl up and cause some tornadoes from time to time. That would be our main concern tomorrow morning. The tornado threat is one. The gusty winds is also another one, around 35 to 45 miles per hour. And those rain bands could cause some really quick flash flooding, mainly between 8 a.m. and noon. Let's talk about the wind threat. You can see how gusty our model has us being. This would be around 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, 40 to 50 mile per hour winds by around 9 and 10 o'clock. We're still dealing with that. It should start to get a little bit better by noon, but staying quite breezy through tomorrow afternoon. We have a wind advisory in effect. There's a tropical storm warning in effect for South Carolina and the Charlotte area, over to parts of western North Carolina too. But as I said, a wind advisory is what we're seeing here locally, and that's for tomorrow through about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, once those winds start to go down a little bit. Let's take a closer view at Futurecast. As I said, pretty quiet through most of the night, but once we get toward 4, 5, and 6, you'll notice the winds are starting to whip up a bit, and then the rain comes in fast and furious around 7, 8, and 9, and 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Any of these parts of the storm could create some tornadoes. So we're pretty concerned about that. Make sure you have your alerts turned on your phone, ready to go. You want to be alerted if that happens. The afternoon, we'll start to actually see probably some sunshine breaking out from behind the clouds. The risk of tornadoes, it's there for all of North Carolina, but it's pretty significant for us. It's even higher down east. That means anybody across the state could find a hurricane. As we go forward, you can see the sunshine winning out for the rest of Friday, and then Saturday is going to be a nice day of weather here in the Piedmont. This is kind of the plan for all of those threats considered at once. Flash flooding, yes, that could be happening. Most likely, that would be around the sunrise time frame through the late morning hours. Beyond that, we're looking at high winds as a potential. Those too could cause some problems when it comes to power outages. Tornadoes, they're possible. Again, that morning time frame from about 5 a.m. to noon. Power outages too will have to be watched. So make sure you're doing the best you can to protect yourself. Have your phones charged up. Make sure you have us downloaded so you can watch the coverage if you had to take cover from a tornado warning. And the best thing you can do, honestly, is just to make sure you're avoiding the worst part of the storm. And for our area, the worst part of the storm is going to be that morning time frame from about 5 a.m. until 2 p.m. Beyond that, we have improving weather conditions. Hopefully, a lot of us keep the lights on in our part of the state, but the western part from the mountains, they are going to see it the worst. The most rain and the most wind will be out that way. We'll be thinking about them throughout the day tomorrow. We'll, of course, keep you updated with more updates throughout as we track Helene in the Carolinas. So much rainfall, 3.5 from Charlotte to